So in this video, we're going to talk about patterns of population growth. So the first thing we're going to mention or go over is how growth can have its maximum potential. So basically, what is the maximum population growth rate going to look like under ideal conditions? That is your biotic potential. So you have the most organisms being produced when everything is under perfect conditions, right? So there's a lot of factors that influence this. And the first factor is going to be the number of offspring that can be produced per reproduction. So if you're looking at insects, they're going to be able to produce multiple offspring. Sometimes they can produce, hundreds of offspring in one go at one reproductive activity. Then you have to look at other organisms like humans. We tend to produce one offspring per reproductive process. Then you have to look at chances of survival to the age of reproduction. So for insects, they have a low chance of survival. Most insects are going to be killed off before they reach reproductive successful age, whereas most humans survive to reproduction. The age at reproduction. So this is another one. Insects, they can reproduce relatively early on. Fruit flies are a great example of this. Fruit flies actually reproduce 8 hours after they come out of their pupa. That's how fast they start or become sexually mature. Humans, I just do insects and humans because that's really what I studied, right? Humans, on the other hand, have to go through puberty, which typically starts at anywhere between ages of 11 to 15 years old. And most actually wait until they are adults now to reproduce. And then how often individuals reproduce. So for insects, they can copulate once, have sex once. Not all insects, but some insects can copulate once, and they can be pregnant for and just basically harbor the sperm until or for the rest of their lives. So they don't have to copulate every time they want to have a new offspring batch. And that's not all, that's just some. And so the example that I use there are cockroaches. There are cockroaches that have sex once and then they're pregnant for life, and they just produce egg cases whenever they feel like it. Whereas, again, humans, once they get pregnant, it's going to be 9 months before they can even think about getting pregnant again. And each time they have to copulate to get pregnant. So, there's a lot of factors that influence population growth. So some patterns. The first pattern we'll look at is exponential growth. Exponential growth is a growth rate that increases as the population increases. So the more organisms are in the population, the faster that population increases. This results in what we call a J-shaped curve, and there are two basic phases. The lag phase, so this phase is small because the population is small, and then exponential growth, which is where you start increasing the population size. So you can see this actually in microbiology when we put bacteria on an agar plate. You can, within a 24-hour period, you'll start seeing bacterial populations or colonies. And so that's showing exponential growth. So you started out with just a few cells, and now you have millions and millions of cells in just a very short period of time. The problem with exponential growth is that it can't last because there's some environmental factors that will limit the amount of population increase. So with our bacteria in the lab, when I streak a plate, the bacteria have that nutrient agar, all the nutrients in the agar that they're going to be able to utilize for growth, for producing new amino acids or whatever they need to grow new cells, right? But as they increase in numbers, the amount of nutrients dwindles. And so that's going to stop the ability of the bacteria to grow. So exponential growth does not last. So this is what it looks like with exponential growth. Here we have that lag phase again. We have a small population, but once they start reproducing, we just increase greatly. This is going to occur until we hit some biotic or some carrying capacity number. So once we hit that number, then growth is going to drop very quickly. And I am going to change the color of my pen. There we go. So here you can see number of reindeer per millions. The carrying capacity is way down here. Maybe, and I'm just going to make a number up. Maybe 10 million is the carrying capacity for reindeer. In exponential growth, this is in 1910, they started growing faster. 1920, they increased above carrying capacity, and they had a decrease because they had overshot and the environment was not favorable for keeping all of them. But something happened then and allowed the offspring to really overshoot big time. So they went up way up here above carrying capacity. This causes that population crash that we see, and in the 1950s, we were back down to where the number of reindeer was within carrying capacity. So a more reasonable growth rate pattern is logistic growth. So population growth is influenced by the environmental resistance, and it increases as the population grows larger until growth levels off. Okay, so this shows more of an S-shaped pattern. We have 4 phases here. So we have lag phase, exponential growth, deceleration, and then stable equilibrium. So with the lag phase, growth is small because population is small, just like we had before. And then we have exponential. Growth increases and population increases or exhibits biotic potential. So it grows very rapidly until we hit that carrying capacity area, right? So we slow down as we get to the top of our exponential growth. And then we kind of hit the stable equilibrium where any growth that takes place is because of births, and deaths are about equal. So let's look at what that looks like. So here we have that exponential growth. Here we have lag, then exponential growth. And then we have this S looking area where we kind of are right. We increase, we decrease, we increase, we decrease, but we stay within that carrying capacity level. Okay. And that's what logistic growth looks like. And so here you see number of sheep per millions in the 1800s. We had a low number. We increase, we overshoot that population. It comes down, and then we kind of stay within that equilibrium or within that carrying capacity equilibrium. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop here, and we'll get into survivorship in the next video. Bye.